Hare Krishna Kundi. Oh, Gauranga Nityananda. How are you doing, sweetheart?
I messed up. I realized I have to make dinner.
You have what?
I have to make dinner.
You have to make dinner.
Hold on.
Cornflakes. Cornflakes. Bhaktirupa likes that. Oh, by the way, I didn't get a chance. Things have been spinning around so fast for everybody. Tomorrow's the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they're having a big program with the Gaudiya Mutts at Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Janmastan. And we're welcome to go if we want. I think it starts some 11:30 or 12 like that. And there'll be prasadam there. I think Bhaktirupa's interested to go. He said something, yeah. And of course, Brandacharya will be going, his wife.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, nice to see everybody. We'll just start in just a minute. Just give everybody another minute or two to start. Hare Krishna, nice to see everybody. Well, Lila Purushottam, you look so young when you're shaved up.
What to say? Maybe usually that's not my priority to look so nice. So.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Also, we're here in Puri, and when I'm in Mayapur, it's like I feel like I'm on stage and it's public all the time, and my shaving standard is a little different than when I'm here. Still here, we have classes and whatever, but anyway. All right, so why don't we go ahead and start? I'm going to unpause the recording thing. Goragraganya gana gochagoloruharam Goranga gudatama gopyata kolpa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshikavaram satatam namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoy Amara Pranare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema Bidana Padama Pumata, Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste, Madgavirapi Gopala, Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jari, Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha, Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya, Sasanatana Rupaka, Gopala Raghunathapta, Brajabala Bapahimam, Vancha kalpatarubhishcha, kripa sindhubhya cha, patitanam pavanebhyo, vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is our 15th session on the Sanarpita Chirim Chirat verse, which is the 14th verse in Guru Maharaj's Mangalacharna prayers. I think we may finish this in this session, maybe next. We can recite the verse. Anarpita chirim chirat karuna avatirna kalo samarpahitam manujvala rasam swabhakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipitaha sada hridaya kandare sparatuva sachinandanaha. Lila Purushottam, would you like to read the translation, please?
May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Shachidevi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy, to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love.
Gauranga. So we've been speaking something in the last, 2 or 3 sessions about the meaning of this Unnata Ujjvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam, which is Samarpayitam, is what Mahaprabhu came to give, and why this is so special. And this verse, again, it's a significant verse in our line, because it's describing that what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, no other incarnation had ever given before. And what is that? We've been discussing a little bit about that in our last few sessions. So we've been discussing about what is that Unnata Ujjvala, the most elevated Unnata Ujjvala Rasa. That's Manjari Bhava, which is Swabhakti Shriya. It's a treasure that Krishna himself has. So in that connection, I wanted to go a little further to review a little something more of what we just went through, but also go on to speak something more about Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and his particular role in this regard, and the role of Giri Govardhan. So there's 2 primary types of Madhurya Rati, or conjugal mellows in Braj. Sambhog Gek Chatmika, which is Nayika Bhav, or the mood of a Saki, the mood of an amorous heroine. And then there's Tad Bhava Chip Atmika, which is the mood of an accomplice or a Manjari. Srila Rupa Goswami describes this in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Tad Bhava Chitmapika Tasam Bhava Madhurja Kamita. Meaning this is defined, this Tat Bhava Chekatmika Bhav, this is defined as the attitude of wanting to assist Srimati Radharani and other Yuteshwaris, other Gopi group leaders, to meet with Krishna, to assist them to meet with Krishna, and to enjoy pastimes with him. And they relish these pastimes rather than enjoying with Krishna personally. And Rupa Goswami says this is called Tad Bhava Chekatmika, or Saki Bhav. The attitude reflects the hero and the heroine and awakens the sincere and unlimited love that someone has for the Yuteshwari, meaning the Yuteshwari may mean a group leader such as Lalita, Vishaka. Generally in our Gaudiya line, Lalita is the main Gopi leader, where someone has unlimited love for her or for the Nayika, Srimati Radharani, who becomes more dear to the devotee than his or own self. And that's a very, very astonishing thing. When we speak about religion in this world, pretty much everyone, they're interested in becoming purified at best. Most people, they're interested in spiritual life and the mode of ignorance. They're interested in just getting something, getting a wife, getting a husband, getting money. It's a little more elevated than they want liberation. And therefore, it's very difficult for people to understand Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and even for devotees. Sometimes, just as a side note, devotees, when it's your birthday, right, and you have the misfortune of having a Facebook account like we do, and you get about, I don't know, it seems like thousands, probably realistically it's about 400 or 500 different devotees writing on and saying, happy birthday and this and that. And many of them, they like to say, and may you never take birth again. And that's really sweet. That's a sincere thing. They don't want to see us take birth again. But that's not our goal. Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitakitve. Mahaprabhu teaches us that in his line, what he's come to give, Anarpita Chiryam Chirat, this thing which hadn't been given in a long, long time, this Mama Janmani Janmanishwari, that who cares if you have to take birth again and again and again. Prema Dana Vina Vyarta Daraja Jivan Dasa Kori Veta Mori Deha Prema Dan. Rather, he prays that I may become a servant and have this prema, and I want to become a servant, and this prema is the only dana, or the only wealth, the only payment that I request. So what does it mean to be a servant? That's this Manjari Bhav. Narottam Das Thakur has sung about this in many different songs. Many of our acharyas have sung about this. I'll share with you one song. Well, let's see here. I think I can go ahead and show this also on the screen. It's a nice song, so you can kind of follow along. Just to give you some idea of how common it is for Gaudiya Vaishnavas to speak on this subject and how intensely they feel about it. Shri Rupa Manjari Shri Rati Manjari Sa Labagan Gandhari Manjulali Shri Rasa Manjari Sange Kastarika Adi Range Prema Seva Kori Kuta Holi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Hare. So he's singing that I want to do this prema seva, prema dana vina vyarta. Mahaprabhu says that I'm not Daridra Narayan, I'm Daridra Jivan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta comments on that line in that way. I'm not Daridra God, I'm a devotee, I'm a jiva who's Daridra, who's very poor. And therefore I'm asking you to please give me the wealth of this service. And what kind of service is that? Prema dana vinavyarta daraja jiva dasa kori veta mori deha prema dana. I want this particular service. And this service is what all of our acharyas are praying for, prema seva kori kuta holi. And they're praying that I can do this Sri Rupa Manjari, along with Rupa Manjari and Rati Manjari, Labanga Manjari, Rasa Manjari, with all the different 6 Goswamis who have these Manjari swarups in the spiritual world. Esabada anugoya prema seva niba chaya ingete bujibo sabkaja. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare. Rupe gune dagamagi sadahobo anuragi basati koribo sakir maj. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hey, Esabara Anugahoya, Prema Seba Niba Chaya. That this is what I want. I want to be Anurag. I want to be Anuga. I want to be following Esabara in the footsteps of all of them and rendering this Prema Seva. And Ingita Buji Bashab Kaj, by the Kaj means a work or what activity I should do, just by some hint from them that I'm going to understand what I should do. And what is it that I should do? Rupe Guni Dagamagi Sada Hobo Aniragi Basati Koribo Shakir Maj. I should be always absorbed in hearing and chanting about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, the forms of Radha and Krishna. And we do that as a bhajan for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. And as we've often commented, this is the bhajan or the kirtan of our sampradaya. Tate Krishna bhaji kori guru sevan. That our Krishna bhajan is our Guru seva. Our Guru seva is our Krishna bhajan. So everyone else is doing bhajan because they like the nice music or it feels good and it's very peaceful. That's okay. Or maybe a little higher than that because they want to purify their heart. That's noble. That's very good. Better than that, maybe because they want to try to get liberation, or maybe we want to do some kind of service. But really, this bhajan is meant for the pleasure of Srimati Radharani. And the gopis, the Sakhis, they're coming around Radharani and they're doing this kirtan for her pleasure. And so this again is a kirtan of our sampradaya, that we're doing this on the order of our Gurudev in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates who are Gopi Manjaris. Bindavani Dui Jana Chadurdike Saki Gana Shamoy Bujia Rasa Suke. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vrindavana Dui Jana Chadurike Sakigana. There in Vrindavan, when these Dui Jana, these two persons, Chadurike means all circled around, all the different Sakiganas, all the different gopis. Samoy Bujie means to understand. That Samoy, this is the time, Rasa Sukha. That this is a time.
Madhavananda Prabhu, your sound is again lowered after the singing.
That's because I have this microphone system again, and it lowers the volume. Wow. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay now? Sorry about that.
Yes, now it's perfect.
I better keep this thing open. Sorry. I've been, for the last month or so, I was in Mayapur and I didn't have this software on the computer. It was a different thing. So Narottam Das Thakur is singing that Vrindavani Dui Jana Chadurike Sakigana, that these two personalities in Vrindavan, Radha and Krishna, when they're there, Chadurdike means in all four directions, Sakigana, all the gopis are surrounding them. Then at that time, Samoy Bujya, Samoy means the time, Bujya means to understand, that Rasa Shuke, this is the time for this particular service that I should render for them. Then what happens? Sakira Gita kobe, chabara dulaba kobe, tambula yogava chanda muke. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. At that time, when am I going to get some ingita hobe, some hint, some indirect, because this is the way, again, we've spoke about this so many times, that the devotees in Vrindavan, they interact sometimes, just like, to give an example, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Krishna goes, excuse me, when Gopakumar goes to Vrindavan, he's there, and Shrimati Radharani had made breakfast for Krishna, and there was some special ladus, Manohar ladus. And Krishna was taking the prasadam, and he took one of the Manohar ladus, and he made this face like, oh my God, this is disgusting. And then Krishna threw the rest of the ladu at Gopakumar. And Gopakumar, he took that ladu and, oh my God, this was the best of all the ladus. And that's why Krishna is making that face. He's meaning something else. He's making that face to actually indicate, it shows some disgust on one level, which cheats certain types of people, just like we've been speaking, for those of you who've been following maybe in our Tuesday morning kathas, Tuesday here in India, on the Brahma Gita. In the last session, we were speaking especially too about how Krishna is saying one thing which cheats certain people, but he's saying another thing for the gopis. And that's the way things go in Braj. Sakira Ingita Hobe, that one of the Sakis, she gives some indirect indication. Chamara Dulava Kobe, that you should take the chamara and you should start doing some service now. Tambula Yogaba Chandamukhi. And to the Chandramukhi, or the moon-like faces of Radha and Krishna, you should offer them some tambul. And Narottam goes on to sing. Yugala charana sevi nirantara e bhavi anuragi rohi bosadai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare. Jugala Charana Sevi, Nirantara E Bhavi. I just constantly, my mood, I just constantly, Nirantara, I want to meditate on this thing. This is the treasure. This is the Anarpita Chirim Chirat Karuna Avatirna Kolo. This is a Anuta Ujvala Rasa Subhakti Shriyam that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to give, which no one had given before. This constant meditation, this constant aspiration for this type of service, serving the divine couple, constantly meditating on Anuragi Hoy Sudoi, with great attachment, Anuragi. I want to do this thing. Sadane Bhavi Bojaha Siddhadeha Pabotaha Ragapatira E Supai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this is again a subject which, as in our last session, we elaborately provided so many different cautions that we shouldn't just rush into. But as we also marked, even in books like Harinam Chintamani, and there's an interesting story about Harinam Chintamani. Once Srila Prabhupada was there, and his his servant, his Sanskrit editor, what's his name? He's an old friend of mine, actually. He met my mother even. Pradyumna Prabhu, Krishna Kunj, thank you. The Pradyumna Prabhu, Prabhupada saw on Pradyumna's desk, there was a copy of Harinam Chintamani in Bengali. Such a wonderful book, right? I hope that all of you have gone through something of Harinam Chintamani, gotten inspiration. But when Prabhupada saw that, he said, why are you reading this? Pradyumna became a little confused. He said, well, Prabhupada, because it speaks so nicely about the holy name and it gives so much instructions about the different offenses and things, because sometimes Pradyumna would have to give a lecture before the initiation ceremony on the order of Srila Prabhupada, and he would speak about the 10 offenses. And Prabhupada said, why do you need to focus on the 10 offenses? This is a very beginning book. That was his comments. But if you read in Harinam Chintamani, which is a beginning book, it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur made a second volume, Bhajan Rahasya, which is more confidential. But in Harinam Chintamani, in the last section, he speaks about Manjari Bhav and Siddhadeha within Harinam Chintamani. So it's just something we should understand something about. And it's not something that we should run around and speak about in the temple, much less in a public forum, because it's really a very, very confidential thing. Yeah, the volume keeps going down. I just turned it back up again. So we should know something about this. And this is in the context we're speaking today, and we spoke in our last session also. So he's saying, Sadhana bhavibo jaha siddhadeha pabotaha, that in my sadhana, I want to think about this. I want to meditate on this service of Radha and Krishna as a Sakhi Manjari, and siddhadeha pabotaha. And this is Ragapatira. This is the pathway of Ragmarg. This is a way to understand it. So we should understand something about this. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Thakur Bhaktivinoda, they both stressed many, many times. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, actually Gorkishwara's Babaji, he once said that the Siddha Deha mantra is Tanadapi Sanichena. Sometimes devotees think, oh, I should go to Radhakund and I'll pay some money to one of the Babajis and I'll get Siddha Pranali. And just as a little footnote on that subject matter, in the course of our research over many, many decades here in India, I've been to Radhakund many times. I've spoken to different Mahants there and different Babajis, and there's even a couple of ISKCON devotees who've been there for quite a long time who are staunch ISKCON devotees. And I found some very interesting things. Historically speaking, they did not give Manjari Bhav or anything to anyone except for someone maybe who's chanting like 3 lakhs a day and has been practicing for many, many decades or something, then they might give that person Siddha Pranali. But things have changed more recently. And according to some of the persons there, and I don't want to get into this because it'll be become like politics, I'm afraid, but according to some of the devotees there, what they give to a lot of the Westerners is just like a toy to a child. And sometimes they give the same Manjari Swarup to one person, they give to another person, they give to another person, and tell them, don't tell anybody. And sometimes later on, privately, they said, my name is, this such and such Manjari. No, that's my name. And then they went to their Guru Maharaj, who was a very prominent person, and he said, and he didn't say anything. And then later, privately, he told one of his close devotees, he said this thing, they're like children, just wanting a toy, so we're just giving them whatever. The point that I'm confident with, aside from all these different sectarian differences, which I find a little unpalatable to speak about amongst the Vaishnavas, is that if we're sincere in our bhajan, if we're sincere in the chanting of the holy name, then everything will come. And Thakur Bhaktivinoda in Harinam Chintamani says that Name Prasvatita Hoy Rupa Guna Karma, that from the holy name blossoms Rupa Guna Karma. Your form, your pastime, your qualities as in the spiritual world, and your services. It also can refer to Krishna, in Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, and Krishna's pastimes. So all those things will come. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, I'd like to speak a little something about him today because I want to go in the direction of Govardhan Hill and the worship of Giriraj in our line as an example of this Manjari Bhav. In the Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Padati, Mahaprabhu's dear associate Gopal Guru Goswami, he's written something about Raghunath Das Goswami. Racham Bujakya Kunje, Stinduleka Kunje Dakshine, Tatraiva Tishtati Sada, Surupa Rati Manjari, Taravali Dukilayam, Tadit Tulya Tanu Chabi, Dakshina, Midvika Kyata Tulasita Vandatiyam, Asya Vayo, Dimsadayo, Hanayastu Trayodasa, Pitasya Vishabam Kanto, Divakyam Sarada Prasuhu, Swashruscha Sanika Prokta Chamara Sevananvita, Iyam Hi Raghunathakyam Prapta Gore Vase Kolo. That he says that there's a kunja, Ratyam Bujakya Kunja, known as Ratyam Buja, which means the lotus of Rati Manjari, which is south of Induleka's Kunj. And there, Rati Manjari always resides. And she has a very mild nature, Rati Manjari. He describes something about her nature, her age, how she's 13 years of age, 13 and 2 months old. She describes her father, his name is Vishaba, her husband, Deba, her mother is Sarada, her mother-in-law is Sanika, and the particular service that this Rati Manjari does, which is fanning. And it also describes her nickname, which is Tulsi Manjari, and how in the age of Kali, she's known as Raghunath Das, or Raghunath Das Goswami. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through Raghunath Das Goswami, he taught so much to us, and through all of our 6 Goswamis. Raghunath Das Goswami, when he was staying here in Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu, seeing his intense renunciation, which was not ordinary renunciation, but it was full of the fragrance of intense prema. And he gave him 2 very important gifts. And these gifts I'd like to focus on a little bit today. These 2 gifts, these are the only deities that I know of. Someone can correct me, maybe I have to think about it. Oh, Mahaprabhu gave a deity of himself to Vishnu Priya. And to Narottam Das Thakur, he came in a vision later on and he revealed the deity of himself. He also gave a deity of himself to a few of his associates. He's done that. But a deity that he worships, a deity that he appreciates, aside from a deity of himself, the only deity that comes to my mind is this Govardhan Shila and the Gunjamala, which was given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Raghunath Das Goswami. Shila Diya Gosai, Diya means to give. He gave that Shila. Shila Diya Gosai More Samparpila Govardhani Gunjamala Diya Dila Radhika Charani. Raghunath Das Goswami spoke this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he said that by giving me this sacred stone, that he's offered me to Govardhan Hill. Just like in the Govardhan Basa Prarthana Dasakam, which are 10 verses Raghunath Das Goswami wrote, he finishes with the last verse saying, Nijan, Nirupadi Karunena Sri Sachi Nandanena Twai Kapati Satopi Twapiyana Pitosmi. He said that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave me to Govardhan. Not that he gave Govardhan to me. There's a subtle but very important difference. He gave me to Govardhan. And through the Gunjamala beads, Raghunath Das Goswami is saying, Shila Diya Gosai More Samparpita Govardhani Gunjamala Dila Radhika Charani, that he gave me the lotus feet of Radhika. So after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, then Raghunath Das Goswami, he left Nilachal Jagannath Puri, and he went to Braj, and he stayed at Radhakund, the base of Govardhan Hill, the place where Mahaprabhu had given him. And there at that place, he became completely absorbed on the bank of Radhakund, and he wrote Stavavali. And he wrote so many different wonderful prayers and things. He wrote his Vilap Kusumanjali. That Vilap Kusumanjali is said to be kind of like his swan song, just like a swan. Traditionally, they say that at the end of its life, it sings in a very, very beautiful way, just before it leaves its body. So it's Vilap Kusumanjali. It exhibits the unbroken absorption that Raghunath Das Goswami had in that Manjari Bhav. And very, very important. In the prayers of Raghunath Das Goswami, I like to say, we've mentioned this before, maybe somebody heard me speak about it, but his prayers are something like an echo of Mahaprabhu's bhajan in the Gambhira. And think about that. Just like some of you may know some persons who were in the Vietnam War. And in the Vietnam War, many Americans, they were captured by the Vietnamese, and they were put in prison camps. And after some years, they managed to get free. When the war was finished, then they came back to America, and they were scarred for the rest of their life. When they came out, they were just skin and bones. Maybe after some time, they gained their weight back, they gained their health back, but they can never forget. They'll never be able to forget what they went through. We have the word in Sanskrit, samskar, which we could roughly translate into English as some scar. It's just like you may tell somebody, wow, that's really some scar that you've gotten. The word samskar means an impression. So those personalities, they've been scarred by what they've gone through. So is it any less for Raghunath Das Goswami, who saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood in the Gambhira while he was serving Swarup Damodar Goswami, who's a Lita Saki, and he's seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his madness of ecstasy, rubbing his face on the wall and is bleeding. He's seeing this Kurma Roop when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's hands and legs went inside of his body, which is Mahabhav Prakash, which is the same kind of form as Lord Jagannath. He saw when the Mahaprabhu's arms and legs became elongated. He saw during a Rath Yatra and how the Mahaprabhu was squirting water out through his eyes like a squirt gun, and there was blood coming from the pores of his skin. He saw all these amazing different types of ecstasies. So how can he forget about that? It's not just like, yeah, that was nice, and I it's something vaguely in the past. He's been scarred. And whatever he writes after that is an echo of Mahaprabhu's bhajan in the Gambhira. In a similar way for the disciple, when a disciple does bhajan with Gurudev and he becomes very intimate with Guru, and he hears the kirtan of Gurudev, and he hears the katha of Gurudev, and he hears the mood of Gurudev, the proper disciple will imbibe that in his heart. And then, as my Guru Maharaj used to say, that the function of Sri Guru is to speak Krishna Katha, the function of the disciple is to hear. And then later, the Guru tells the disciple, now you speak. But what does he speak? Guru Maharaj said, you just repeat what you've heard. So that's an echo of what we've heard from Gurudev. But that echo shouldn't be a mechanical echo, just that I remember the verse that Gurudev said, I wrote it down. But we want to understand the inner bhav that our Gurudev had. So in this regard, I want to speak something about Giriraj Govardhan and the significance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving Raghunath Das Goswami these two objects, Govardhan Shila and the Gunja Mala. And really, these are the deities of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and especially for sannyasis and renunciates like Raghunath Das Goswami. This is the deities that we have, the deities that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, and which our Goswamis have written prayers about. So we'd like to examine something about that. We'd like to go through that and try to understand a little something of the position of Giriraj. I'm going to go to this article that I wrote in our last issue of Sri Krishna Kathamrita magazine about the glories of Govardhan Hill as a devotee. In the Garga Samhita, and maybe I should make a little comment also about the Garga Samhita, which we printed in our magazine. Sometimes some devotees have said, oh, Garga Samhita is quoted by Sanatana Goswami, because sometimes devotees, they question, where is this Garga Samhita mentioned? What is its position in Vedic literature? It's not enough just to say, I think something, or I heard this or that from some personality. We should quote Shastra. But then even if we quote Shastra, we want to know what is the position of that Shastra. Why was it spoken? What was the context of it? What is the Shastra? And so when we speak about Garga Samhita, there's a question, because we don't find Garga Samhita quoted anywhere in any Puranas. We don't find it quoted in any Vedic literatures that I've ever come across. And we did extensive research for over 20 years, not nonstop, but during 20 years, we were speaking with different Mahants and Sadhus and scholars about this thing, going through many different books. I've not found even one citation of Garga Samhita anywhere. If it was spoken by Garga Muni in Dwapara Yuga, we would think there must be a lot of mention of it. As sometimes devotees, they say that, oh, it was quoted by Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And because in one of the purports in our BBT edition of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Garga Samhita is mentioned there. But we went through the Sanskrit of Sanatana Goswami's commentary there, and he doesn't mention Garga Samhita. Garga Samhita was something added, mentioned by our dear Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, who I have the highest regard for. It was added by him. So someone may have some doubt about it. I just want to keep it in the proper context and not try to present that it's something that it's not. But at the same time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes Garga Samhita, I think something like 20 times. I went through the labor going through the Bengali books in his Navaridham Mahatmya, in the Pramana Kunda section. He quotes Garga Samhita so much, and I went through very carefully and found all the references in the Garga Samhita that Bhaktivinoda quotes in Navaridham Mahatmya. Most of their places in Dwarka that he's speaking about, and that's a whole nother subject matter. But Bhaktivinoda was comfortable to present it. We've also found with Garga Samhita that universally it's accepted. Every Gaudiya Matacharya that we know of, that we spoke with, they accept it. The Babajis at Radhakund accept it. There's so many different personalities, contemporary Vaishnavas, they accept Garga Samhita as a bona fide literature. And we presented Garga Samhita because we feel at least it's an inspired book. And in this book, it gives the only description that I'm aware of the ontological position of Giriraj in connection with his ontological means the topmost position or his ultimate position in connection with his appearance. And in the third canto, chapter 9, it says there that on one occasion, after Krishna performed Ras Leela with the Braj Gopikas, he was very pleased with them. And so then he offered them a benediction. Because Krishna, he promises in the Gita, Yeya tam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. I always reciprocate with my devotees however they approach me. So Krishna was very, very pleased. The Ras Leela gives Krishna more pleasure than anything else. So Krishna certainly wanted to reciprocate with Radharani and the gopis. So Krishna, he offered them a benediction, a boon. And at that time, not just any gopi, but Srimati Radharani. She said, Yadi rase pasano si mama premna jagat pate tadaham patanam tam tu karomi manasi stitam. Said, my dear Lord, if you're pleased with my love, yadi means if, yadi rase pasano si, if you're pleased with my love that we in this Ras Leela that we perform, then there's one thing. One manasi stitam, there's one thing in my heart, in my mind that I'd like to present before you. And Krishna said, Tatastu, so be it, whatever you want. And then at that time, Srimati Radharani, she said, Vrindavane dibya nikunja parshve, Krishna tate rasa rasaya yogyam, rahastalam tvam kurutan manogyam, manorato yam mama deva deva. Srimati Radharani, she said that there in Vrindavan, in that Vrindavan forest, in that divine Dibya of the forest, in a kunj there, in a very secluded place, on the bank, Krishna means the Jamuna, Krishna with the long A at the end, Krishna tate rasa rasaya yogyam. There by the Jamuna shore, I would like it if you could make some place for the Ras Leela. That's my desire. And so then Krishna again, he said, Tatastu, so be it. And the Garga Samhita then describes what happened at that point. Tadaiva Krishna Hridayat Gopi Vyuhasya Pashyata Nirgatam Sajalam Tejo Anuragashyeva Chankuram. At that time, it's interesting how they say that there's a vyuha. You may have heard the word vyuha in the Mahabharata. Vyuha means that there's a whole army or a part of the army were there. Vyuha Pashyata, this group of the army were watching. Who is this army? Gopi Vyuhasya. this division of gopis there, while they're all watching. Tadaiva Krishna Hridayat. From Krishna's heart came something. Nirgatam Sajalam Tejo Anuragasheva Chankuram. Krishna's personified anurag, his personified love, came from Krishna's heart. Sajalam Tejo, in the form of water and fire. And it landed on the ground and it started growing and growing very quickly into this giant mountain. And that's the origin of Giriraj Govardhan. Let's think about that for a moment. According to the Garga Samhita, which is a book, again, accepted by our least recent acharyas, Giriraj Govardhan is Krishna's personified love in his heart. Who resides in the heart of Krishna? Srila Jiva Goswami, in some of his prayers, he's described that Srimati Radharani, she's in the heart of Krishna, just as Krishna is in the heart of Radha. So Radharani's requested Krishna, you please make a place for us to do our Ras Leela on. And Krishna then, his personified love for Radha comes out of his heart, and that becomes Giriraj Govardhan. And who is Giriraj Govardhan then? Giriraj Govardhan is Krishna's personified love for Radha in the form of wanting to do service to please Radha. How? By bringing Radha and Krishna together in a place for the Ras Leela. Digest that for a moment. It's a very, very deep point. It's something which is very subtle, which I find even sometimes senior and advanced devotees, sometimes it just goes right over their head. That's Manjari Bhav. Krishna himself wants to serve Srimati Radharani. And therefore we say that Giriraj is Haridas, that he's a devotee. But at the same time, coming from Krishna's heart, he's Vishnu Tattva. He's a Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Vishnu Tattva. But he's in the mood of a devotee. And we would do better to worship him in the mood of a devotee. And therefore, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his prayers to Giriraj Govardhan, he prays it, Vina bhavet kim haridasa varyo padashayam bhaktiratasa yami yameva suprema najasayo Sri Govardhana me disha tamabishtam. That, my dear Giriraj, you please satisfy my bishta, my desire. And what is that? He says, first of all, he says, Vina. Vina means without. Vina bhavet kim haridasa varyo. Unless you worship Giriraj as Haridasa Varya, the best of Krishna's devotees, then you can't get that swaprema, or the love that Giriraj possesses. Isn't that a very profound point? What does that mean? The love that Giriraj possesses. Well, we can have love for Giriraj. We can worship Giriraj as Krishna. But here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, Yam eva swaprema nijasyosi, that, my dear Giriraj, I want the love that you have. And what does that mean? It means that Giriraj, he has this love for Srimati Radharani, because Giriraj is Krishna, but he's in the mood of doing service to Srimati Radharani and bringing Radha and Krishna together. And therefore, Giriraj, he's the deity for our 6 Goswamis. He's a deity that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Nirupadi Karunena Sri Satchinandanena. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's Nirupadika. His karuna, his mercy is Nirupadika karuna. It has no upadis, no designations, Raghunath Das Goswami says. Why it has no designations? Because he's simply in the mood of Srimati Radharani. He's not in the mood of Lord Narayan or Vishnu, who says, okay, look, Yegatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamiham, we'll make a deal. Okay, that's Krishna's statement in the Gita. We'll make a deal. You approach me 5%, then I'll reciprocate 5%. I'll do like this. But Raghunath Das Goswami says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not in that mood. He's in a very astonishing mood. Nirupadika karuna. He doesn't have any upadis, any designations. He doesn't care about all this Vanashram things. He's simply in the mood of Srimati Radharani, who's giving things in a very, very free way. So unless we worship Giriraj in that way, Vina bhavet kim haridasa varyo, Vishwanath says, unless we worship him as a devotee, we can't get the swaprema that he has. Gaudiya Vaishnavas generally worship Giriraj in one of two ways, either as a devotee, as we've been discussing a little, or as Krishna himself. And both are common. In fact, I know of one devotee who was serving a Gaudiya Matacharya. He was a personal servant of him, and he had 2 Govardhan Shilas, and one of them he worshipped with a flute and a peacock feather, and one of them he as Krishna, and one of them he worshipped him as a devotee without a peacock feather and without a flute. So both are bona fide. If we worship Giriraj as Krishna, that means Haridev. Haridev is Govardhan Dari. He's the holder of Govardhan Hill. And we consider that Giriraj Govardhan, he's Vishnu Tattva, and we worship him in that way. And worship him as Haridev, he gives a very amazing, wonderful thing. He can give Brij Bas. He can give residence in Vrindavan. But Gaudiya Vaishnavas, following our six Goswamis and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we're instructed, Vinabhavet Kim Haridasava. You should worship Giriraj as Haridas. And if you don't worship him as Haridas, then Padashrayam Bhakti Ratashayam Yameva Swaprema Najesus. You can't get the Swaprema, the bhakti that he has, the prema that he has in his heart, which is that Manjari Bhav. And so, therefore, our Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they worship in this mood. So these are big subjects, big topics to try to understand. I'm not, again, I want to give a little disclaimer. We're not advocating that devotees practice this as a particular type of sadhana. There's a difference between practice and just simple understanding. We should have some understanding of something, and after having a deep understanding of a subject matter, then in the order of guru, we may begin to practice. But that practice begins on the order of some qualified person. And in our deity worship, we worship the deity according to the order of Gurudev. We worship on his order, according to the mood that he has, according to his particular instructions. And so I'm just speaking these things today in a kind of theoretical way, in an informational kind of way, although I don't like to just speak about information, but it's not ordinary information. This is information which is full of bhav, which is full of divine love from our acharyas, to try to help us understand something about this topic and the meaning of this anarpita chiryam chiryat verse, and how it is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's giving something which hasn't been given in a long time before. And what is that thing that he's giving? It's Unata Ujjvala Rasa Swabhakti Shriya. It's Swabhakti, it's his own bhakti. And therefore, he's giving this Govardhan Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami, but he's not giving the Govardhan Shila to Raghunath, he's giving Govardhan. He's giving Raghunath Das to Govardhan. He's granting to devotees in this way, this swabhakti, this his own bhav that he has, which is this unata ujjvala rasa, this topmost elevated conjugal mellow, or the mellow of the Sakhi Manjaris. And as Srila Rupa Goswami is described in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this is tad bhava chit atmika bhav. This is the mood of the Sakhis or the Manjaris that they just want to serve. They want to serve a Yuteshwari, a particular Gopi group leader, or they want to serve Srimati Radharani, and their devotion is more intense for that group leader or for Radha even than it is for Krishna himself. And therefore, we generally, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they don't appreciate sometimes devotees that they may say something and they may say a prayer, my dear Krishna, and they may meditate on Krishna, touching them in an intimate way or something. But that's not the mood of our Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Rather, we're not thinking for our own pleasure. Rather, we want to bring Radha and Krishna together. This is a kirtan of our sampradaya, and this is the meaning of this Narpita Chiram Chirat verse. So I want to stop there. I think we finished our discussion. Everything that I'd like to say anyway about this verse. Does anybody have any reflections? I'd like to welcome also my dear godbrother Prandar Acharya Prabhu. I don't know how he's listening today, how involved he is with everything, but we had a discussion earlier today and he had requested that, I told him we were going to have a katha and he requested he could take part in it. So I'd like to just see if anybody has any feedback now, any reflections or anything. Nice to see you, Brenda. Brenda Sundari, actually, I guess we should start with you because you're going to have to go, I think, right? Usually you have class to attend.
Because of the time change, it's an hour earlier, so I don't need to.
Any reflections you have today?
Well, what stuck with me is that the elevated souls, the acharyas, they don't want liberation. They don't even really care if they whether take birth again in the material world. They just want service. And I was sort of contrasting it to this sort of endless phenomena of people of being short-staffed at the temple. and just seeing like it's not necessarily plentiful that there are devotees that just want service. So it seems to be rare.
Yeah, just want to render service. And sometimes we've seen in the history of our movement, we talk about this all the time in our discussions, that we have people who join and their motivations are not so pure. And sometimes they even have a bad smell coming from their motivation, and it causes troubles. But Srila Prabhupada engaged them. Our acharyas have engaged them, just like Krishna engaged Putana in service. According to Jiva Goswami, the Bhagavatam says that Putana was killing all the babies in Braj, including, so Jiva Goswami in his commentary says, my God, she was killing the babies of the Brijbasis. And Jiva Goswami says, no. Krishna was engaging, he was tricking her, and the only babies that Putana was killing were the sons and daughters of the followers of Kamsa. And so in that way, Krishna was engaging her in his service. So Putana is a false guru. And Srila Prabhupada saw many false gurus come to his movement, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also. But like Krishna engaged Putana, so also Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta engaged those personalities. But we don't want to hang out with Putana very much. But for those of us who've taken a very responsible service of maintaining a temple or even the position of guru, it's a very, very difficult thing. There's so many people who are coming who are not qualified. And we need to maintain the temple in that. So we accept service from so many different persons, and they may not have the topmost motivation. My suggestion always very strongly is that we should keep these two things in mind. We should keep in mind the mission of Srila Prabhupada and our service to maintain it, because that's what's going to please him. That's how we're going to get mercy. And at the same time, to nourish ourselves in a deeper way, we need to have smaller, intimate groups. This is our eternal subject that we're always speaking about. And Brenda Sundari, when I made it's close to my heart what you're doing there, because I was in charge of the Boulder Preaching Center, which was nothing. We didn't have Radha Govinda Govintai and the deities there that you have, which is a very difficult thing to maintain. But just being in charge of the center, it's a big headache. So anyway, thank you very much for your service. I want to say this very strongly to all the devotees. We should show affection to everyone. We should show respect to all devotees. And if we see anybody who's doing a very intense service of accepting disciples, or doing a very intense service of being a temple president or something, we should have special mercy for that person, special compassion, because it's a very, very difficult thing. Or being a parent. Brenda Sundari, she's not a guru, but she's a parent. And she's in charge of the temple. She's doing both things. And you're not doing it for yourself, I don't think. I think you could have a better career if you wanted to just make money. Whatever, probably a lot less politics. But we're doing it as a service. And maybe even sometimes she makes mistakes, although probably you never make mistakes, I'm sure. But sometimes the managers, they make mistakes, and we should tolerate that, just like our parents make mistakes sometimes, but we tolerate them. Anyway, I'm sorry for glorifying you, Bindu Sundari. It just makes me think what you're doing. We should understand something about this very high topic we're speaking about today, but we also live in the real world. And we should also understand where we're at and what is my position with things. And in a theoretical way, we can hear about some of these things and we can adjust, okay, in our mind, that's my goal, that's what I would like. But we have to pay the bills. We have to see the deity worship go on. We have to see the Harinam go on and different basic things.
Yeah. Well, it seems like too, I mean, and this might sound funny, but I think that as I get older, I realize that pain is just part of existence. And so I'm seeing myself avoid pain less and less. And so I can see that sort of human phase that I'm experiencing, it's helping me in my devotional service. Now I think I understand a little bit what they mean, what the acharyas mean by I just want to serve. Like it doesn't matter what pain I undergo in the service, I just want to serve.
That's really beautiful. And that sentiment, in a very deep way, We find in the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we find in many different places in our Acharya's writings that pain that we have in service actually becomes our greatest happiness, our greatest ecstasy, when we can accept that. That's a very, very difficult thing to understand. And therefore, it's a demarcation line. And a lot of people can't cross that because in ISKCON even, it's no longer any fun. People not being respectful to me. I'm not happy. Therefore, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to this or that. And I understand. I'm not going to criticize them for that. But as a higher principle, if you stay even with the pain. And I saw that with my Guru Maharaj. My Guru Maharaj, my God, we could write a book. I did write a book about his life, but we didn't. What we didn't write in the book was all the trials and pains and things that he went through, the tortures from some of his godbrothers and the devotees in ISKCON, a little bit, but just because we didn't want to make it unpleasant and criticize anyone. But the things that he went through and tolerated, but he did it for Prabhupada. And that's really his glory. That's Manjari Bhava also. If you want to get that topmost thing, then you're going to have a big headache, because that Madhurya Ras and Braj means that the gopis, they're married to someone else. And and it means their husband and their mothers-in-law and different persons are banging them on the head and criticizing them. You got Jatila and Kutila there, and so many different personalities, and they're going to see Krishna. So in the words of Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother, if you want a life of peace and happiness, then you'll have to fall down to Vaikuntha. Because in Braj there's so many difficulties, but those difficulties are the kind of greatest ecstasy. So anyway, thank you for that, Brinda Sundari. Hare Krishna, appreciate it. Who else is here? Let's see, it looks like Ujjala Rashiga had to go. Pranda Acharya Prabhu, do you want to offer some reflection, anything? Look at there, you got your boss with you too. Little man. I can't hear you. Did you want to offer any reflections, any thoughts? You have to unmute yourself, though.
What I'll tell, Prabhu, I'm listening. I'm okay now.
Okay.
Just going.
Anyway, thank you for taking part, Prabhuji. I'd like to see. I hope you can come over to our ashram sometime soon. We miss having physical association with the devotees. Such a crazy time now. Hare Krishna. Who else? Let's see. Bhakta Reed, do you want to share something?
Yeah. I was appreciating a point you made earlier about how Raghunath Das Goswami's prayers that he gives is just a reflection, like a reflection of, the bhajan that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did in the Gambhira. I think it's a really nice meditation to have whenever we interact with these jewels that he's given us. So.
Yeah, that's so important. There's two types of persons, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bahirmukh Janas and Antarmukh Janas, or external and internal persons. And the external persons, when they see someone doing a bhajan, they want to go and learn the melody that they're playing on the harmonium, and they go and they videotape that. It was such a great melody, it was such a good tune that he's singing. But the internal persons, they want to capture the mood of that person. And that's our real purpose, our real goal. And again, just as in the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, I'm really meditating on this subject a lot lately, Brahma Gita. There's a cheating aspect, there's an external aspect for certain types of people who are into Gyan and whatever. So also, sometimes in our bhajan, there's a cheating aspect. And those people who just want to learn the melody, not that learning the melody is necessarily wrong. I also like to learn melodies sometimes, and we should. But it's somebody who's only singing in that way. They just want to learn the melody. They're being cheated. But that vanchana, that cheating, is also a type of kripa, a type of mercy. They're just on a little bit of a slower path than other persons. And we don't hate them for that. We have something for everyone. So thank you, Prabhuji. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys pretty soon here in another couple of weeks, I think. It's coming up fast. Hare Krishna. Let's see who else. Natalia, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the lecture. I had a question. I have also some. I like it, some thoughts which I will contemplate on like afterwards. I like this, which you said that some scaras is some scar. It's really, and also that if a disciple is listening to Gurudev, and it is also a very bright samskar, and a disciple is repeating everything after. And also this last point about tolerating pain, which come, which your Guru Maharaj was tolerating, and this is also something which goes like which we should go over at some point, sometime. Also something to contemplate that. And I had a question which is about this worshipping Giriraj. In the chat I just put it, that if someone is worshipping Giriraj in order and to get bhakti, this swaprem of Giriraj, it seems like it is already Guru Seva, like so. And
yes, Sri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingara Tan Mandira Marjanada Yuktasya Bhaktams Chanayunjatopi. The Gurudev Yuktasya Bhaktam, he's engaging the disciples. We should deeply understand our Gaudiya concept of deity worship. It's not just something that we do that's fun, but it's going to give us some pious benefit. Or we go to Lloyd Bazaar and we just, what type of deity would I like? Oh, I like this deity. He looks really beautiful. I'll buy this one. And now I have a deity and I have deity worship. That's not how we get deity worship. And that's not Krishna. That's not the deity. The deity is Krishna directly. It's not just a toy. It's something which is given to us by Gurudev, and he gives us a particular service, a particular way to worship Giriraj, and we follow that, and we're peaceful with that. We're happy with that. Otherwise, we can't worship him. We can't associate with Krishna. Who am I? So that's a very, very important principle in our deity worship, and therefore it's a responsibility too. Srila Prabhupada, when he left Australia, there were so many devotees. Charu Prabhu was there, and his wife, whose name slips my mind. They were there at that time, and Vaibhavi. And Prabhupada had told he prayed to the deities, he gave them Radha Krishna. And there was, I think maybe there was one devotee who had second initiation, and that was it. And Prabhupada just gave a whole bunch of devotees first and second initiation at the same time. And then he prayed to the deities that you please take care of them and please tolerate this, because I can't personally be there. So Gurudev would like to personally be in all those places, but he can't. But he functions through the disciples. I hope that's helpful something. I really liked your comments also about your reflections on what Brinda Sundar was saying about pain and suffering. If we are a easygoing person, in the language of my Guru Maharaj, and we just want to have pleasure, and we're easygoing devotees, we're fair weather friends, as we say in America, then how are we going to make advancement? How are we going to prove to Gurudev and to Krishna that we're sincere, that we're really qualified to get some higher, more confidential thing? And that suffering shows, just like in a relationship between a boy and a girl. There's so much sense gratification, there's so much pleasure. They eat together, they go on dates, and they're getting so much pleasure together. But the real test comes when he suffers. And when his girlfriend gets run over by a truck and she loses both of her legs, is he going to stay with her? What is the depth of that love? So in a similar way, there's a test in spiritual life too. What is the depth of our love? And we're constantly being tested in that way. So when an intelligent person has a test in school, he rejoices. This is very good. Now it means they're going to be able to go to a higher grade. But an unintelligent person thinks, oh my God, there's a test at school today, so I won't go. I'm going to avoid the test. And then he's going to have to stay back a grade. So we should be intelligent when difficulties come, and there's always going to be difficulties. And one of the greatest difficulties is us. We are one of the greatest difficulties. Our Sangha is one of the most difficult things to tolerate. It's one of the sweetest things to be with devotees, but it's also just so very, very difficult to tolerate. But if we can't tolerate that now, how are we going to make advancement? How will we go on if we're just easygoing friends? Oh, I just want a fun life. I don't like these guys. They're all materialistic. They're all doing a bunch of politics. They're all institutional. And therefore, I'm going to go somewhere else where it's just bhajan. And I see sometimes devotees do like that. But honestly, after some years, I've watched them, and I'm not so impressed with their level of advancement. But I saw in my Guru Maharaj, he tolerated so much. I've seen Naranjan Maharaj, my God, once he gave a lecture in Uzbekistan when we were there to the leaders. And he told him, he said, I have every reason to leave this movement, but I haven't, because I stay here for Srila Prabhupada. And I've seen that basically in every single, I've seen it in Satchidananda Maharaj, I've seen it in Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. The things Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj went through in Moscow, you'd faint. The kind of criticism and politics and terrible things that he went through. And he just tolerated that because he wanted to serve Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's mission. So that's the kind of thing that we go through. It's going to build our character and it's going to help us in our bhakti. So I really appreciated your reflections like that, Natalia. Thank you. That's what it means to be a mother. Mothers have to suffer, and they're going to suffer again and again. I once spoke to a lady in Hungary, one Mataji who had 3 or 4 children, and she was in her 70s, and her children were like in their 50s. And she's a devotee. And I asked her, I said, can I just ask you an honest question? Do you still think of your kids? And she said, constantly. They're 50 years old. She's got grandkids. She says, I never stop thinking about them. That's what it means to be a mother. And it's going to mean a lot of headaches because so many of those kids, they get married and their husband is a jerk and maybe even abuses her or something. It causes so much pain to the mother. They go through so much pain. But that pain is an expression of our love, and it helps us to grow our love deeper. So, okay. Thank you, Natalia. Let's see. Tirthakar Prabhu, do you want to share something?
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. I really like that point you mentioned when you were speaking about Garga Samhita. I was not really aware of those things. And that you made this thorough research, that it's actually solid, especially when it comes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and like that. And I was on one Sangha previous week. I wanted to actually ask you a question because I got some answers there, but it was actually not so clear. It was not really like you mentioned, it was not really backed up by Shastra. And I wanted to ask you, and you also mentioned one time on class that this Ramachandra Puri, that I think he was Kutila or Jatila, I'm mixing these two. And those devotees who are, or let's say those persons who are with Krishna in his pastimes, and they are many times also negative roles, right? Are all of them associates of the Lord who are coming with him and just playing those negative roles, or?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one song, I think it's in Saranagati. If anybody's interested, just let me know. I'll send you the Bengali. He offers prayers to all of the demons in Gaur Lila. And he says that Lila Pushtikari uses that phrase, that they're great personalities, they're associates of the Lord, and their purpose is to come is to help nourish the pastimes of the Lord. If there's no demons, if there's no demons in your temple, if there's no demons amongst the devotees, if there's no politics and everything's just so easy, where's the glory of it? Where's the glory in Braj? But the Srimati Radharani, she has Jatila and Kutila who are constantly trying to stop her. There's heavy politics there. And yes, Ramachandra Puri, according to Gaur Ganadash Deepika, was Jatila in Krishna Lila, whose job is to to find fault with Krishna. It's a very sweet thing. Is that okay?
Yeah, and so for example, like let's say Dhritarashtra, right? He's someone in between. He's not completely negative, but also he's not really a devotee, right? And so is this same personality who comes whenever Krishna comes and performs this pastime? Is the same person who comes always and as a performs this Dhritarashtra role, or it can be also different, let's say, personalities or jivas who are just fitting, like, let's say, like Indra, right? Indra is a post, you know, so there are persons who fits in there.
Sometimes they may be. In the case of Dhritarashtra or Duryodhan, I can't say. Rashtra means land, and Dhritarashtra literally means someone who's stealing land. So in that sense, it sounds kind of like a post. But I haven't heard any description of them being described as eternal associates. But at the same time, why not offer prayers to them? I could happily, enthusiastically offer prayers to Duryodhan because he's an associate of Krishna. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Lila Pushtikari, he's nourishing the pastimes of the Lord. Bhaktivinoda in that song, speaking about Gora Lila, he says they're eternal associates. In this particular case, I don't want to say because I don't know of any particular reference, and we should offer a reference. But one thing I am confident is that we can glorify them. We can glorify all the rascals. As I often say, we went through a few weeks of meditating about demons in ISKCON. And there are many demons in our society. They are demons. I mean, they are full-on, full-fledged demons who molested children. That's the behavior of a demon. Who killed people, who've abused women, who've done so many demoniac things, but they're not ordinary demons. They're devotee demons. They're initiated. They're chanting the holy name. They're not an ordinary demon. Doesn't mean that I want to hang out with them or take the remnants off their plate. Doesn't mean I'm not going to call the police. I should call the police. If I see a woman being abused or a child or something, we should have zero tolerance of that. But they're not an ordinary demon. They're a special demon. And my job, Rupa Goswami very clearly says in Upadeshamrita, Krishneti Yashagiri Tvam Manasadhyeta, I should respect them, at least in my mind, because they're chanting the holy name. And that respect requires some maturity. Sometimes I can't respect them. My God, how does this guy is such a demon? We should just burn him at the stake and whatever. Okay, that's your mood. I'm not going to argue about it, but I'm going to respect them because the fact they're chanting Krishna's name. And my respect in one sense then is not actually to them, but it's to the chanting of Krishna's name that I appreciate. And this is one way, honestly, that I've survived for so many years in this society. Otherwise, I would have also just gone completely crazy at seeing so many terrible things in the society. But the holy name is there. And the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam describes mantratas tantratas chidram desha kalavastita. There's so much, what is it? Mantratas tantratas chidra. There's so much chidra, so much fault in your mantra and tantra, which means basically your organized religion. But sarvam karoti nishchidram, all that chidra goes away, anusankirtanam tava, with the chanting of the holy name. This is a short version of ISKCON. That's the short history of ISKCON. That we have so many problems, we're all completely messed up, but the holy name is there. And we want to keep the holy name prominent. But again, that doesn't mean that I have to tolerate it by associating with them or supporting them even. But I'll keep some distance and I'll see sometimes they're being engaged. Maybe they're a little materialistic or a lot materialistic, but they're being engaged in the holy name. It's wonderful. But for my Sangha, we have this program we're doing right now, it's evening for me. We do this every Wednesday because I need to have Sangha like this or I'll go completely crazy. Isn't it?
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much. It made much more clear. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
When acharyas are present here, and we know, for example, many of our acharyas are manjaris, right? Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and Rupa Goswami and like that, Sadhana Goswami. Are they fully aware of their original Svarupa from the spiritual world, or is it covered for a time of that past and that they can more focus on that mission when they are here on
What an
performing
interesting
that?
question. I don't know. Maybe Lila Purushottam Prabhu might have a reference to that. I don't have a reference to answer that question exactly, but I have some indirect references. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Raghavat Chandrika describes that Krishna is primarily mugdha, or bewildered. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he forgets that he's God. So if he forgets that he's God, then certainly a devotee may also forget him. Srila Prabhupada, in some conversations, there's some beautiful conversations with Jai Advaita Maharaj when he speaks to them about what does it mean when Gurudev is Sarvagya, that he knows everything. Like once somebody asked Prabhupada, if Guru knows everything, how many windows are in the Empire State Building? And Prabhupada replied, how many bubbles are in an illusion? So, but sometimes Srila Prabhupada might say something, and he might say, I don't know, 10,384 windows. And it turns out it's exactly correct. Oh my God. So he knows according to Krishna's desire. I often tell the story about Srimati Mataji, an old friend of mine in Seattle, who I'll just briefly relate it. She was a hippie before she joined. And one morning she got up 4 o'clock in the morning. She was on top of a hill with a very difficult service in Seattle, Washington. She was going to meditate and make the sunrise. And it turned out to be a cloudy day. She couldn't see the sunrise. She forgot about that, came back down. Later in the day, one of her friends said, hey, there's some Indian Swami doing a program. Would you like to come? Yeah, sure. So she went, and it was Srila Prabhupada. And she couldn't understand a word that Prabhupada said because his accent. And she's just sitting there and watching. All of a sudden, Prabhupada stopped, looked right at her, and said, you cannot make the sun rise. That was the only thing that she understood, and she became a devotee. So when we speak about the subject of the guru's knowledge, it's all depending on Krishna's desire. And there may be some far out miracle like this where Prabhupada understands the heart and mind of that. Or maybe he didn't even understand it. Who knows? Maybe just Krishna made him speak that. And it was just perfectly right on. So that would be my understanding, that according to the will of the Lord, sometimes they're conscious of that, sometimes they may not be conscious of that. And sometimes even, according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, they may even manifest a particular mood to support a mood that someone else has. Like the guru may be theoretically a Sakhi Manjari, but he may present sometimes a mood of Sakya Ras. And our acharyas have described that because Madhurya Ras is the topmost and all the other rasas are included within it, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that such a guru, he's a guru of all the different rasas. And sometimes he can manifest a mood of servitorship or parental mood or some other lower, I don't want to say lower, but some other, we could say lesser mood than Madhurya Ras. Very fascinating thing. I hope that's helpful. Lila Purushottam, do you want to add anything to that? You know any reference or anything?
Well, I remember discussing this topic, but I can't give really reference, so it doesn't have really value. But I remember hearing that basically they are not aware, the acharyas coming, they are not aware, just as Tirthakara Prabhu proposed, for the purpose of the authenticity of the Loka Shiksha. They just don't walk around like, oh, I'm this Manjari, that Manjari.
Jiva Goswami may give another motivation too in Bhakti Sandarbha when he talks about the source of mercy. I mean, this is something we've discussed many times, how Krishna doesn't have mercy. And that sounds really horrible. But he does have mercy through his devotees. But that mercy, Jiva Goswami says, means compassion. And you can only have compassion when you suffered. Yeah. So Krishna, he doesn't suffer. He's full of happiness. And his devotees are also not suffering. But sometimes they forget about that and they experience the pain of being in a womb, or maybe even their girlfriend leaving them, who knows, or whatever. They experience some particular pains in the material world by which they can understand the suffering that the conditioned souls go through. But their suffering is not like the suffering of a general person. Prabhupada went through so much suffering. He was married and his married life was unhappy. He suffered. in that way. Prabhupada was gored by a bull in Delhi when he was working on his printing. He's not an ordinary person, but he experienced that suffering. He can understand what it is. He suffered 2 heart attacks in 2 days on the Jaladuta coming over. So those kinds of sufferings are something different.
Yeah, actually, one thing comes to my mind to support this point. I remember, I remember that it was quoted many times by Indra Prabhu in his kathas. That and it's quote of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but I don't know exactly the place in Brihad Bhagavatamrita where it is, where Sanatan Goswami says that even when the jiva becomes qualified to enter the Nitya Lila, enter the eternal pastimes, very often it happens that Krishna comes to such a jiva and ask the jiva to come back again to the material world and bring as many as possible with him, with the explanation, because after all, there is no one more qualified than you, because you went through it all. You have the same experiences that the conditioned jivas has. You went through it. So in that sense, like, was like in Krishna's eyes, such a jiva might be even more qualified than Nitya Siddha coming from the spiritual world, because he can 100% relate to the state of conditioned jivas.
You're gonna frighten me. I remember once being with my Guru Maharaj on the plane. We were flying back after I was serving him for like a month and a half in Europe. And we're on the plane flying from Heathrow in London back to Delhi. And we're just alone together. And at one point I took the opportunity just to speak my heart. And I said, Guru Maharaj, I can't understand why anyone would want to be a temple president. Bindu Sundar, you'll appreciate this. Because it means you got to deal with politics, you got to deal with money, you got to deal with women. It's just a real headache. I can't understand why anyone would want that. And Guru Maharaj very enthusiastically said, yes, yes. And then he was quiet for a moment. And then he turned to me and really heavy said, unless your guru tells you, and then you must. Yeah. And I became really frightened. I thought, oh God, please don't tell me this. Don't give me this instruction. So similarly, you may go back to the spiritual world and Krishna says, I want you to go back to ISKCON. And I want you to be the temple president, be a GBC or this or that. And then you'll start crying, Leela Purushottam Prabhu. No, please, not that.
Yeah.
There's a nice verse in where is this found? This is in this is Ujjwal Nilamani, 941. Hari Priya Jane Bhava Dvare Sadhya Nochita Iti Ye Viharanti Te Gyeya Apurva Rasika Kshito. He says that people who are in this world, they don't understand the nature of transcendental mellows. And so they're considering that negative things, dvesha, hatred, and envy, they're improper. He said, but they don't understand rasa, because there's always this thing going on amongst the gopis of Braj. And he speaks about this in the following 2 verses after that, how in Braj there's always some rivalry, there's always some hatred and jealousy that goes on. And someone who thinks that it's not going on, they don't understand Braj Bhav. So it really depends on our perspective that we have. And that to me is the essence of the message of our Goswamis, that we should have a particular perspective on things. And then we'll realize something deep in the heart. And we should accept, again, as Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj used to say, the environment is always friendly. We don't have to complain, but there's some benefit here for me.
Yeah, I guess this conception is really tested with the conception of Vipralamba. Like how can we deal with it as the ecstasy? Ecstasy means like smiling, jumping up and down, happy. But its highest expression of ecstasy is Vipralamba, which is like which with the Monday vision just looks like suffering, actually.
If you think about it, it's envy which keeps us away from the Lord. And the climax or the highest point of envy is impersonalism. Mm-hmm. I'm God. Everything is all about me. I'm going to merge with everything. Or on lower, lesser levels, I have to think about my pleasure. I have to get liberation, or I'm fried with this particular situation. I'm fried with these people. And again, it doesn't mean, just like Mukunda Maharaj, when I was a new brahmachari in Los Angeles many, many years ago, we used to have meetings with 3 or 4 devotees and him, very sweet meetings. And he told us a story once how he was in London, and he was one of the founders of the London project there. And after some time, a lot of new devotees came and other things, and he wanted to leave. There was some politics, and he was tired of things. He wanted to go somewhere else where he could do something more. He didn't feel he was being useful. And so the devotees went and complained to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada came and said, Mukunda, he's restless and he wants to go here and there. And so Prabhupada called for him. And Mukunda Maharaj arrived there, and he started to explain to Prabhupada this and this, and Prabhupada just stopped him. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, you need a change. And Prabhupada sent him somewhere else. So it doesn't mean that we just have to burn ourselves to ashes in the fire of politics and envious association or whatever. But we should follow the order of Guru. And if Guru wants me to burn to ashes, then let me burn to ashes. That'll be beautiful. I'll come out like the phoenix in a better way. Is that okay, Tirtha Karpaguru? Lila Purushottam, do you have any your own reflections? You want to share anything?
Yeah, I will. I will in advance apologize that I will again represent the dry academic here without any realizations. But the first thing I just wanted to confirm, as you mentioned right on the beginning of the katha, that the only deity that you know that Gauranga gave is Govardhan Shila with Gunjamala. I was thinking there is a story, I believe if it is Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Gauranga tries to worship Shalagram, and he can't even start because he immediately starts to cry. And he gives up, and I can't just remember if he gave the deity to or asked to either Gadadhar or Mukunda. I have a vague memory of such a pastime that he said, I'm so unqualified that I can't even start the puja, and could you please take care of the puja of this deity? And that was with Shalagram. You remember something like that?
It doesn't ring a bell for me. Maybe you could look it up and share it with us later on our chat or something. But it does remind me of how Mahaprabhu gave Tota Gopinath to Gadadhar Pandit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's an example.
Yeah. And to be that dry academic, I believe it will touch a little bit on the point of Natalia's question, as she wrote it in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to touch on that. I was looking at it. Go ahead.
That well, one more thing that I just want to clear for myself, because I've heard you many times using that quote of the 8th verse of Vishwanath Chakravarti's Govardhanashtaka, and you always mention it with Svaprema, but I always read it as a Saprema. So is there like different reading, different version, or does it mean the same? Because I'm not Sanskritist, so
it might be my mistake. Probably my mistake. But in any case, whether it's Saprema or Svaprema, let's see here. Yeah, actually, Saprema is the reading I've got right here. But still, he's saying Padashrayam Bhakti Ratashrayam, that you give me this bhakti that he has. This is the bhakti that Giriraj Govardhan himself possesses. That Saprema means that thing. Saprema, his prema. It means the same as Swaprema.
I think that we made a mistake when we made the magazine, and it was my mistake. Swaprema is Giriraj's own love.
Yeah.
Saprema is that love.
Oh, Saprema means with. Sa means with.
In the meaning, but in the understanding that is that kind of love which is Manjari Bhav. There's no difference in that.
But Padashayam Bhakti Ratashayam, are you taking shelter of him for his bhakti that he has? Huh? And it makes sense in that way. Yeah, so sa just means sa prema, that prema. That prema that he has. Good point, Prabhuji. Thank you. I like that.
Which means, but it's the same. That prema or your prema says the same.
Point, but little less strong. But Swabhakti Shriyam is that's a little stronger. Swabhakti. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And in that regard, I want to clear one thing. Like there is this term, tat bhava icha mai. That means like, if I understand it correct, like with the like that one now I can't express myself. the other thing is the sambhog ichamai, this saki bhav, that you desire to have a personal relationship with the Lord. And now, in compared to that, the Manjaris are described with that tat bhava ichamai, that they want her mood. Is that like tat your bhava, her mood, to experience it?
Yeah.
And now,
yeah. Speak about that. Tat bhava ichamai, the kamanuga bhakti, that we want to serve under the particular guidance of the Braj Gopis, because like you're saying, tat bhava, we want that bhava that they have. Each of that's my desire. Each of my, I want that thing that they have.
And now, I'm really sorry if it's just then stop me. What is the relationship of this expression, of this term, to bhava ulasrati? Because it sounds to me almost like a synonymous, or like that rati, that attraction that rises the bhava, and that specific bhava of Radharani. Is that understandable in that way, or?
Trying to do these things. I'm not such a great expert on these things, but I would, yes, my understanding is those two things are the same. But if you find something different, then please correct me. But they seem the same to me.
Okay. It was same for me. I just had the feeling that it sounds almost like synonymous. So
just to make a little disclaimer kind of comment in this regard too, many times devotees want to have discussions about things like this, and they're beneficial. We shouldn't shy away from them. They're good, but we should be careful how we conduct it and not be proud or angry or try to champion a particular thing. If we haven't realized it, it has no meaning, then it just becomes really something very distasteful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hey, Brajabanita.
Yes, I just wanted to add that the ulas, Hare Krishna, ulas, it's something that inspiring you, ulas, and ujvala, it's shining. That's by Sanskrit. I just joined 15 minutes before you finish, so I need to listen all the class from the beginning. So
okay, it's being live streamed on Facebook, on live stream on YouTube too. I'll give the link.
Yes, I will see a little later. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No other reflections from you today? We weren't being too rough on you.
No. I just sometimes I'm very, I'm how to say, I'm on the waves of my emotions. So but thank you.
Rash fault finding. I'm finding fault with the fault finders. And at least one person wrote some article back challenging me and chastising me. He's finding fault. He's finding fault with the fault finders. And he's right. But at the same time, we should always appreciate that even fault finders, even Ramachandra Puri and Jatila, they have some place in our life. We should be so well-rounded and appreciative of devotees that we can appreciate everyone's mood. And even if someone's a revolutionary or whatever, that's their mood. That's okay. It's a little hard sometimes for if you're a temple president, if you're a manager, and you got some radical guy who really wants revolution all the time. It's hard for those managers a lot of times to work with them. It just depends on how much we can digest. Prabhupada could digest them.
I just can say
Digest
that
those kind of persons. A lot of
if I can, it's some delay with the
yeah.
I just want to say that with the, with the years, with the age, I just more and more appreciating people who is in the shadow. I mean, I find the more similar mood with the people who is in the shade, not in the people with the people who is in the front.
Yeah, and you know something too, Brajamani, my humble experience with growing with age is that, just like with George Harrison, I was watching something about his life recently, and although he's said to be the quiet Beatle, he had a lot to say. And when he had something to say, he would really say it. But then later in his life, he wasn't such a revolutionary. He was into gardening. That was his thing later in life. We want to go with all the teenagers. Every teenager, they want a revolution. They got to, this and this, and that's okay. We don't want what's needed. We need revolutions. If we don't have people like that, they need to stir things up and clear up the water from the muck and whatever. We need that. But then as we get older, we can just tolerate that. And I want to do some gardening. I want to slow down a little bit. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Gwani Thai Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. This nice katha. Yes, I was impressed by when you mentioned that mantra for Siddha Deha, which you mentioned this beautiful verse, which I am really meditating on to help me have my inspiration for chanting nicely. So yes, this Trinadapi Sunichena is a really perfect Siddha Deha mantra. So my reflection is that for my 30 years being here, trying to become a devotee, and I see that that's my missing point. So yes, I wanted to serve, I wanted to really help develop my spiritual life, but still that was my missing point, that I was too much, pushing things to get. And many times my Guru Maharaj told, wait, it will appear from your chanting. So that I was thinking in this time when I was retiring, that was so important to have this patience and have this tolerance and have this humble mood, because that's also part of the Sharanagati. And without being humble, there is not Sharanagati, there is not really surrender. So then we get the mercy, but we don't keep it. So I think this humble mood is just a pot by which we can really keep the mercy which we get from begging mercy, but we need a good pot to keep that mercy and then bring home. So I like this very much, this Trinadapi Sunichena, like a Siddha Deha, yes. If I become Trinadapi Sunichena, then Krishna can't give me anything. If I'm not, wasting time. So I like this very much, this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, you've been through so much. You're one of the senior devotees in your yatra. And we all know, when we're younger, as the Beatles sung, so you say you want a revolution. Well, we all want to change the world. Right? Yeah. We all wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
Through our expose, exposing the rascals and this and that. But then as we get a little bit older, we realize that it just doesn't work. It doesn't change anything, all that passion and that. And the only thing that's going to work is if I become a little humble and if I actually have some realization, and we call that wisdom. That's what happens with old people, with old fossils. Anyway. Thank you, Gornitai Prabhu. You're a real treasure for the
I really have something to say. Condense what you have, and then it's condensed mood you give. I wanted to say something about this question of these manjaris, what they are experienced. Just very shortly, that my Guru Maharaj wrote somewhere, that's the fact that there are some eternal associate of Krishna who have two Siddhadehas, who have one for Gauranga Lila and one for Krishna Lila. So naturally in their Gauranga Lila, they don't meditate on the other because that would not matching. So they know that they are Rupa Goswamis and that Lila. That's I would add to that topic.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes they meditate on that. Sometimes that thing comes. But just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, here in Puri, we often cite this pastime at Chatak Parvat when he fell into ecstasy and he saw Govardhan Hill and he saw Radha and Krishna and he was separate and he was serving the gopis. He was doing Manjari Seva. So sometimes that mood comes, that vision comes, and then other times some other thing comes, according to the desire of the devotees. Comment here. She said, I have a question. If someone is worshiping Giriraj to get his bhakti, this seems to become Guru Seva and Giriraj becomes Guru Tattva. Yes. Any of the Vaishnavas, any of the devotees, we can accept as Guru. And in that sense, the Guru Tattva. I spoke with my Guru Maharaj about this, and I've heard other Vaishnavas also speak about that subject too. And Leela Purushottam started to mention that as a good point, and he didn't finish it, I think. That, the disciple may have a desire to serve in the mood of some spiritual master. We should desire. Prabhupada said very strictly, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta commented many times, that we first deserve, then we desire. We should naturally just cultivate. It's a natural thing. That's a very unpleasant thing. My strong feeling is in these regards, which is why we're presenting this topic the way we have, is that it's important that we should know about these things. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, you should know that such things exist. And this is our goal, to have these things. Otherwise, we may just strive for some impersonal thing. We may just want to strive for becoming anartha nibritti, becoming free from all the anarthas, and we just want to get rid of all the problems in ISKCON. Good luck. You'll be here for many lifetimes with that desire, and you're going to suffer a whole lot. But someone may have that desire. Okay, let's.
I meant it like that. You explained it on the Guru Tattva seminar that you gave for the IYF. That the best disciple is one who automatically understands the mood of the guru and his desire. So in that way, it's also like that bhava ichamai, and he's tuned in with the desire of the Gurudev in that sense.
Yeah.
Not that he would usurp the mood, but that he serves that mood in that sense.
And how do we understand that mood? We understand that mood by hearing. And I can't just hear it from a recording, because the recording is a machine which replicates. It makes it sound like the Gurudev's there in the box, but he's not. As Prabhupada sometimes would say, it just replicates that sound. And that sound is not the same as being there in the room. And Prabhupada's crying, or Gurudev's crying, and we can feel serve them, and that thing comes to our heart then, and then we can begin to understand. That's the purpose of disciple. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. And it looks like Ujjwala Rasika came back along with her brick wall. Oh, the brick wall disappeared. Now you're inside. Now the brick wall's there. Okay. Her famous brick wall. Any
Sorry.
reflections from you?
Yes, yeah. Pranams to you, Prabhuji, and to all the devotees. I apologize. I'm in and out
Yeah,
of
it's
the
okay.
building. It's a little cold here, and the appointments are being changed. Anyway, so wonderful to have this Sangha, Prabhuji. There are many points today. From the very beginning, starting from, Manjari Bhava, Radhakund Babaji's, to the very practical points of how we should be humble, Trinadapi Sunichena. So many points, Prabhuji, at so many different levels. But as you said, we will engage in the services that are given, but we really need this Sangha. And if we don't have this Sangha that nourishes us, gets really weak, disconnected, lost, confused. And of course, as you said, we go crazy when we don't have this Sangha regularly. So having this kind of Sangha is something that is like prana for the bhakti.
Yeah.
So that point I really appreciate, Prabhuji. If we don't have this oxygen supply, there's nothing else that we could do. If only we can have this, there is so much that we could do. That crucial is that this Sangha that nourishes us. I appreciate that very much, Prabhuji. And samskar. Some and scar, both of them.
Well, you're a doctor, so you like some scars.
Both of them, Prabhuji. It's not just the scar, but it is also some. And the narration of Raghunath Das Goswami with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how beautifully you connected it with Shri Guru, and the samskar that Shri Guru leaves on us when we get his association. That actually has created a samskar for me today, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Let me just give a really blunt, all-American reflection on your reflection. Let's be careful and not institutionalize this group either. So when we say this group is like this, I appreciate when we said groups like this. I like that the best. We want to have something like, sometimes we have something which works really good. It means, okay, let's institutionalize this. And then there's no spontaneity in it. And that's why, I don't know, I posted something on our WhatsApp group, which I also posted on Facebook, with some devotees, and had a nice organized idea how to approach Prabhupada's books. And you start with the small books, and then you go to this book, and then that. And I have some problems with that. And you probably read those things, but part of the problem I have with it is it just takes away the spontaneity and the wonder of bhakti. So what's the harm if a 5-year-old kid picks up something and starts reading something about Manjari Bhav and thinks, wow, that's really cool. I really want that. He doesn't understand it. Maybe he can't practice it or anything, but it's beautiful that he has that desire. And let's encourage that wonder, that very special thing that's there. So thank you, Ujjwala. Hare Krishna.
It's always expanding, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Glad to receive everything that comes.
Hare Krishna. And let's see. Oh gosh, I guess we're going to have to call on Jai Gaur. Any reflections from you, Prabhuji? Is that a samurai sword behind you? Turn up the volume. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can anybody else hear him?
How about now?
Now I can. Yeah.
Okay. Those are actually gifts from Madhavi so that we can defend ourselves.
You're not using them for to solve marital disagreements?
Maybe. He actually drove around town with a duffel bag full of samurai swords. Madhavi did, and gave them out as gifts to devotees that she saw fit to receive them. It's a very Madhavi thing to do.
That's cool.
Actually, I'm planning to get a pair of huge Wampers and put them there.
I
So
put them
that it
above
looks
it.
like a Jagannath face.
Uh-huh. And it'll make you remember your Guru Maharaj too.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about a bunch of different things. One, I was thinking about what, like we zoom out a little bit, we're still kind of like we're going through your Guru Maharaj's Mangalacharana,
Uh-huh.
and you spent so many years. It's your Mangalacharana also, because you've gotten it from him, and you spent so many years reciting these verses and meditating on them. So I really feel like I got some small realization that you're really sharing your heart with us, because these are some really important verses to you that you're sharing. You mentioned the Nirupati Karanena, the verse from Govardhan Vasa Prarthana Dasakam, and just like all these things together that I know that you think about all the time. So I was really appreciating that this is a very special thing. Actually, you're sharing this with us, and I'm very thankful for that. And oh man, yeah, there's a bunch of different things I really appreciated. I was one just kind of side note. You said like you said in response to one of Vridasinder's questions, just like seeing that the basic things are going on, like this and that, and then Harinam, that Harinam is a basic thing that should be going on. I like that kind of comment. And also you end up saying like Radharani's in Krishna's heart and Krishna's in Radharani's heart, and I was kind of thinking about that, and I was wondering if you had any comments about what way Krishna is in Radharani's heart, because you often speak about how he had to melt her heart and enter into her heart so that he could steal her mood and complexion. But if he was already there, so maybe these are two different things.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting thing to speak about. We could try to speak about it from a point of view of a doctor or something, but I think will fail on every front if we try to speak about it in a kind of physical way. How do we understand that? In a similar way, how do we understand that Roy Ramananda is a combination of Arjuna, Gopi, Vishaka Saki is a combination of so many different personalities. And as we sometimes comment, how many feet can you fit into one shoe? It sounds a little strange, but if we and I haven't seen any comments on this from our acharyas, but if we consider that it means that their particular mood, which is non-different from them, has entered into Ramananda Roy in that case, we can understand. So similarly, when we speak about how Radha and Krishna are one, what does it mean? If we try to understand it in terms of some physical thing, well, obviously we're going to fail because they don't have a physical body, but they're also non-different from their mood. So that mood is in the heart, that love that Radharani has for Krishna is non-different from Krishna. Krishna appears in that way. How do they appear? My Guru Maharaj gave that example about melting the heart of Srimati Radharani, and just like the Shama Sasadhara, Krishna is like the moon, enters little by little into the champak flower. It's like the moon unfolds the petals of the champak flower and enters into it. Krishna enters into Radha's heart in the same way. If we try to say, well, that means Radharani has a heart that has different physical petals on it or something, we're going to fail in understanding that. This is all I can think to say in response to that. We should not look at it in a material sense. Rather, we should understand that they're non-different from their love. That love for Krishna means Krishna is personally present there. And especially, as my Guru Maharaj would say, there's this darpana, this Sat Prema Hridaya darpana, or the heart of a pure devotee is like a mirror. And Krishna can actually see himself in that mirror. He's present there in that mirror. The devotees captured Krishna in their heart. Where somebody else, you can take a deity and you can hang him around your chest, but it doesn't mean you have Krishna there all the time. Krishna is something that's going to come when we have that bhav. Is that okay?
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you. I didn't expect anything particular out of it. It's just something that I thought of while you were speaking. So I was just curious what you had to say about it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Bhana Biharani, I know you're there. I heard your laugh a little earlier. You have any reflections or anything? You guys are not having sword fights, are you?
No.
They're sharp. They're real swords.
Absolutely. Once, actually, when I was in Boulder, Colorado, Bindu Sundari, one of the devotee, I won't say names, so the devotee we were staying with there, he showed me that he had a gun, he had a rifle, which he was keeping under his bed. He was like into that kind of stuff, you know. And I remember at the time, it kind of freaked me out because I'm not a gun person. And for me, guns, you know, bad things happen when there's a gun around. The kid picks up the gun and accidentally shoots his little sister, or the husband gets angry at the wife and some terrible thing happens and whatever. So you guys keep them on the wall, okay?
Her sword is much longer than mine, actually. So
she has some reach on you.
Yeah.
You can use it to shave his hair if you want.
That's a good idea.
So Bhana, any reflections from you? Good to see you, by the way.
Good to see you. I was really appreciating what you shared about Giriraj, how he's the personified love of Krishna for Srimati Radharani and his desire to serve her, and how you connected that with how this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. And it's just, yeah, very sweet to hear this. I was also thinking the same thing that my husband shared, that you're sharing something very personal, and you know, it's not just some information. We can feel that it's something personal and coming from your Gurudev, and in that way it's so special to us. So
I'll share something really personal with you that I don't speak about very much. But once when I was in Europe with Guru Maharaj, I was trying to understand Giriraj. And I told Guru Maharaj, I said, how do we understand the statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Raghunath Das Goswami worshiping Giriraj with the Tulsi Manjaris, and how Prabhupada in his purport says that Giriraj is directly Krishna. And Guru Maharaj's response really scarred my heart. He didn't say anything. He was just really quiet. And it hurt me. I thought, oh, I'm being impudent. I'm like challenging my Guru Maharaj. Maybe that's what he was kind of trying to tell me, that I shouldn't try to challenge him. I should approach in a different mood. I don't know, but I always remember his silence, and he didn't answer it. Now, many years later, I came to some understanding about that particular verse. Giriraj is Krishna, and that's why I call him a he. Sometimes devotees, they say, well, is Giriraj a she? And then they want to worship him as a gopi or something like that. I said, no, Giriraj is Krishna's personified love for Radha. And moreover, contemplating that discussion with my Guru Maharaj and feeling scarred by his silence, I came to understand that Giriraj, he's a devotee just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a devotee. It's not wrong. You can't say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not Krishna. He is Krishna. He's Vishnu Tattva. So similarly, Giriraj is Krishna. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But it's not complete to say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. He's something more. He's got the mood of Radharani there. And to just say that Giriraj is just Krishna, that's okay, but there's something more. Giriraj is Krishna. He's Krishna's love for Radharani. So that's my humble thought. I've been thinking a lot about you guys and looking forward to seeing you here in Puri. I hope that everything works out and you're going to be able to travel. I don't know. Things are so crazy these days.
We're very excited, but at the same time, we feel like we have to keep it down, and we're not going to get excited until we're on the plane or until we're in India, basically.
So you're in Puri.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows what's going to happen the way things are these days? It's just really crazy. What's that, Krishna Khan?
They may get locked down here.
Yeah, Krishna Kun said something. She said, you may come here and then you get locked down and you can't leave.
Oh no.
That'd be terrible.
You say that right now. But then when you start missing having pizza and some of the different things you have there, you just
We'll miss the snow.
Yeah, I have to say, please forgive me, but Michigan winter is against my religion. And I'm a very religious person. I can't cope with that. Denver winters actually I could tolerate because I ski. I was a snow skier. I could tolerate that's a little, but Michigan, you can't even. I don't know. You guys have any hills around there?
We do. We have some.
Yeah,
you have cross country or something, but
especially northern Michigan, there's good hills, but
Michigan is colder than Colorado. I work for ski resorts because you guys got the Great Lakes and stuff there, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, global
it's getting
warming
cold
is
here.
working in our favor.
Yeah,
It's
pretty soon you guys
in a few years.
You may have banana trees in your backyard coming up. You know? Who knows? I just got a whole bunch of seeds in the mail today, and we're planting some. Oh gosh, what is it, Krishna Kun? I'm hungry. We're planting lavender and kale and a few things.
Nice.
Now we have a little bit of a garden. I have to just plan it all out real carefully. Anyway,
Rita's so happy that you're planting things. Smiling over that.
I tell you, for me, it's a religion. I think every house should have a garden. Every school, it should be a mandatory part of the education for the students that they go out once a week or once a day or something for an hour or two or something, and they pull weeds and they plant seeds. It's such a beautiful thing for children to grow up with, and it should be a mandatory. And then you can grow some something for the school. You can help grow your food. You can help grow your food in your house. And for temples, the same thing. And I see, like an ISKCON Bhubaneswar temple, there's a nice garden there. Most Gaudiya Mutt temples I go to, there's a beautiful garden. ISKCON temples, we haven't really caught on with that so much yet. Mayapur is pretty good. They've got some serious gardens around Mayapur, some devotees doing stuff. Gardens are important. I like that. Okay, let's see. Leela Purushottam fully agrees with that. It's going on in most of Czech schools. You guys are you're way ahead. In American schools, they just teach the kids how to make a lawn, right? How to grow grass. It's a completely nonsense, useless thing. Reed says to learn that dirt is soil, not a bad thing, but a wonderful thing. I like that. Bhakti-Rupa Prabhu, his father was I don't know, he was a biologist. He dealt with soil, and he used to tell him all the times, soil is not dirt. There's a difference between dirt and soil. Soil is something so beautiful. I got about 20 kgs recently of this koyer, they call it. It's coconut husk. And that stuff is like magic. It is so wonderful to mix in with your soil, because then the soil becomes soft all the time. It is because here under the hot sun, it gets really, really hard. And we mix gobar. We mix gobar, the coconut, and some other nice things too. We want to feed the soil. Okay. All right. So we should go there. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. I'm hoping that picture is going to come from Seattle. I'm really looking forward to that print.
Yeah, he's sending it to us. We're going to bring it.
All right, great. Thank you all so much. It really means a lot to me to get your song every week. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai. For Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Vancha Kalpa Tarubhishcha. Kripa Sindhu Bhava.